Hi guys, it's me Gina. I've tried to record this video and my camera keeps freezing, so if I pause, it's because the camera's acting up. And I'll make this kind of quick, but I had to make a video because one of my favorite videos on YouTube is called My Most Embarrassing Fat Moment. And it's the holidays, so I kind of was thinking about this fat moment. I just was thinking about it because it happened around Christmas time. So here's the thing. I love to travel. Put me on a plane, send me off, I'm good. And I did a lot of traveling when I was in my college years, more than I do now because of bills and things like that. Marriage gets in the way. But I still travel 3 times a year now. And now it's actually nice to travel because even though I'm heavier, my husband and I kind of have a pack where whenever we go on a plane, we sit in the middle seat and then the seat on the side where the window is. And, we take turns, we'll switch back and forth. And whenever you sit in the middle seat, you have to sit next to a stranger because the likelihood of you just being the only 2 in the row nowadays is really slim. So whenever I sit in the middle, I'm always really conscious of my body. I'm always kind of sitting like this, and I might lean on this side, just so that my body is in my seat. Well, that brings me to the fat moment. What ended up happening was about 7 or 8 years ago, a friend of mine who is from Quito, Ecuador, invited me to come meet her family and kind of hang out in Ecuador for the holidays, which I was all for. I was so happy that she asked me. And so I went to Ecuador. And there's only one flight a day that goes, at least back then, that went from Atlanta, Georgia to Quito, Ecuador. And it was always packed. That's what I was told. I was the reason why I know that it was always packed is because when I got off the plane and I checked in for the Quito flight, she was make sure you're back here on time because I had a long layover because the flight's going to be full. And it was. And when I got on the plane, I did the whole fat girl check. And I said, I looked and I was oh gosh, please let me sit next to somebody really skinny because 2 fat girls together, or a fat girl and a fat man together, riding 4 hours is not comfortable. And I actually got my wish. There was this, little chick sitting, it was 2 seats and then 5 seats and then 2 seats, and I was on the 2-seat side. But she was not happy to see me. I guess she was hoping for a skinny person to sit next to her too. And she just wasn't happy. And, when I got in the seat, I did, trying to scrunch up and sit down so that I was not touching her or anything. And when I sat down, she decided to go as loud as possible. So I was a little, and I just, ignored it. And what I ended up finding out is that once the plane took off, there was this really strong aroma of alcohol. And I knew that they hadn't served drinks yet. So, I figured she had before the plane. Before the flight. So, I was just oh gosh, I hope she just sits and is quiet. So again, I'm trying to stay on my side. And every time I move, she's ugh. Not happy. So the stewardess comes by and she says to her in Spanish, she's do you want something to eat? So, I knew she was going to ask me next. And I'm sorry, I was hungry. It was it was late. I hadn't eaten. So I was ready for, the dinner cart. So she puts, I put my tray down, she puts my food down, and as soon as she put my food down, and I'm sorry, I assume that, most of the people, I was the only American on the flight, so, this young girl looks over at me when the food goes down on my plate, on the tray, And she goes, in her best English, which wasn't very good, "You're not really gonna eat that, are you?" And like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe no one had ever said anything like that to me. And it took a minute for me to like even process what she was saying. And I said to her, "Yeah, I'm gonna eat it. You have a problem?" And you know, I'm not a confrontational person. Like, I try to avoid conflict, but it was just so rude. And she's just like, you know, she doesn't say anything, and she's like, I guess feeling the effects of her hangover. So she like scoots up against the window, and she's like putting her head down, she's like, oh, like moaning. But every time I took a bite, she's like looking at me like, I can't believe, you know, dare you to eat. And I just remember that now. Like, every time I get on a plane, I remember that. And now that I'm about to have weight loss surgery, I think about, like, I'm not going to have to deal with that again. Like, like, I don't deal with that now. Like, honestly, no one would dare say that next to my husband. When my husband sitting next to me, they wouldn't say anything like that. But, you know, I just think, like, yay, I'm not going to have to deal with that kind of overt rudeness about my body size. At least I'm hoping not to. So I just thought I'd share, guys. I've loved your stories, so I figured I'd put mine on. Alright, if I don't see you before the new year, Happy New Year!